All right, give me just a minute. All right, good afternoon. I will start off with a statement on Gaza. The Secretary General condemns the death of at least 18 people, including children, women, and 6 UNRWA staff in Israeli airstrikes that hit a school serving as a shelter in Nuseirat on September 11th. This incident raises the number of UNRWA staff killed in this conflict to 220. The Israeli Defense Forces have stated that they had targeted a command and control center in the compound. This incident must be independently and thoroughly investigated to ensure accountability. The continued lack of effective protection for civilians in Gaza is unconscionable. Civilians and the infrastructure they rely on must be protected, and meet the essential needs of the civilian population. The Secretary General calls upon all parties to refrain from using schools, from using shelters and areas around them for military purposes. All parties to the conflict have an obligation to comply with international humanitarian law at all times. The Secretary General reiterates his call for an immediate ceasefire and the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages being held in Gaza. This horrific violence must stop. And just an update for you on the polio vaccination campaign, which is continuing despite the numerous challenges we keep talking about. UNRWA tells us that as of yesterday, 530,000 children have now received the vaccine across the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization and its partners, in collaboration with the United Arab Emirates, organized yesterday the largest medical evacuation from Gaza since October 2023. WHO tells us that 97 sick and severely injured patients and 155 of their companions were transported via the Karim Shalom crossing to Ramon Airport in Israel for onward travel to Abu Dhabi for specialized care. In the West Bank, we continue to follow the developments there with concern and have been updating you about these for the last several days. Meanwhile, the economy in the Palestinian territories has been heavily influenced by this ongoing conflict. A report by the UN Conference on Trade and Development, otherwise known as UN Trade and Development, issued today a report that revealed that Gaza's gross domestic product plummeted by 81% in the last quarter of 2023, leading to a 22% contraction for the entire year. By mid-2024, Gaza's economy has shrunk to less than 1/6 of its 2022 level. According to the report, the West Bank has been undergoing a rapid and alarming economic decline as well. More is online. Turning to Lebanon, as you well know, the situation on both sides of the Blue Line continues to be fragile and is taking its toll on civilians, and particularly in children. Our colleagues at the interim force in the peacekeeping force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, tell us that 2 children were reportedly killed by a drone strike in southern Lebanon yesterday evening. UNIFIL reiterates its condemnation of any attacks on civilians, which must stop. Again, UNIFIL calls on all parties to the conflict to cease the exchange of fire across the Blue Line and return to a cessation of hostilities. UNIFIL will continue all efforts to use its mandate to de-escalate the situation and underscores that a diplomatic solution must be found. This morning, the Secretary General spoke at the global call on the Summit of the Future, which was organized by Namibia and by Germany, who, as you know, are the co-facilitators of the intergovernmental negotiations on the Pact of the Future. Member states are in the final negotiations for the 3 agreements to be adopted at the summit: the Pact of the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations. In his remarks, the Secretary General urged countries to push hard for the deepest reforms and most meaningful actions possible. We need maximum ambition during these final days of negotiations, he said, because the challenges we face are moving much faster than our ability to solve these challenges. The Secretary General added that the Summit of the Future is an opportunity for far-reaching agreement on international collaboration for a safer, more sustainable, and more equitable world. He called on member states to act swiftly and with vision, and with courage and solidarity and in a spirit of compromise to get the 3 draft agreements over the finish line to make the most of this critical milestone on a road to a more networked, effective, and inclusive multilateralism for the 21st century. This morning, our Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, spoke to Security Council members via video technology. He underscored that his primary objective remains the mediation of a sustainable and just resolution to the conflict in Yemen. He mentioned that his office is preparing for further consultation with political parties and civil society to promote a vision for an inclusive peace process in the country. For her part, our acting Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Joyce Msuya, said that for the first time on record, 3 districts, 2 in Hodeidah and 1 in Taiz, are facing extremely critical levels of malnutrition. 4 more districts are projected to reach that level by October, that is next month. By the end of 2024, she added, more than 600,000 children in the government of Yemen-controlled areas are estimated to be acutely malnourished. The coordinated humanitarian appeal for Yemen is only 28% funded. In response to the serious lack of funding for this appeal, OCHA released $20 million from the UN Central Emergency Fund to help our work in Yemen. And also, I want to add that Joyce Msuya said today that she is outraged that aid workers continue to be killed so soon after World Humanitarian Day, which was less than a month ago. In addition to the 6 UNRWA staff who were killed in Gaza, 3 staff from the International Committee of the Red Cross were killed by shelling in Ukraine today. Ms. Masuya said that, like all civilians, aid workers must be protected and must never be a target. In Ukraine, our ICRC colleagues tell us that their staff were killed when a planned aid distribution site on the front lines in the Donetsk region in the east of the country came under shelling. The 2 other staff were wounded when the organization's vehicle were hit. We stress the need for respect of international humanitarian law, including taking every precaution to ensure that these engaged in humanitarian activities are not targeted or caught up in hostilities. We, of course, extend our most heartfelt condolences to our colleagues at the International Committee for the Red Cross. Today's deadly attack in Donetsk come amidst growing hostilities in other parts of Ukraine. In the northeast of the country, aid workers are responding to an attack that struck the Subi region overnight. Authorities say civilians in the town of Konotop were injured and homes and civilian infrastructure were also damaged, leaving the town with no power and no water. We, along with our partners, are continuing to reach people in need in the front lines parts of the Kharkiv region in eastern Ukraine. Yesterday, a UN-led convoy delivered essential hygiene supplies to vulnerable residents in one community there, including older people and people with disabilities. It was the 7th such convoy in 2024 to the Kharkiv area. Some good news coming out of Libya. Our political mission there tells us that progress was made regarding the crisis surrounding the central bank of Libya. In a meeting hosted by the mission today and yesterday, participants from the House of Representatives and the High Council of State on one hand and the representatives of the Presidential Council on the other agreed on taking steps leading to the appointment of a new governor and a board of directors for the central bank. Just to note that our Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, ended her visit to Libya yesterday. In all her meetings there, she underlined our commitment to stand by the Libyan people in their efforts to overcome years of conflict and achieve a durable and sustainable peace. Moving south to South Sudan, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warns that hundreds of thousands of people in the country risk going without life-saving support unless additional funding is received as soon as possible. This year's appeal to help some 6 million vulnerable people in South Sudan is only 43% funded, with $773 million received of the $1.8 billion that we need. The need for additional resource for response efforts is especially critical given the flooding that has impacted some 700,000 people in South Sudan. Between now and December, about 3.3 million people are expected to be impacted. And turning to Nigeria, our humanitarian coordinator there, Mohammed Malik Fall, has condemned a deadly attack on civilians in Yobe State in the northeast. According to local authorities, at least 128 men and boys were killed by non-state armed groups in Mafa town on September 1st. Many others were injured in the attack, including women and children. Shelters and businesses were reportedly burnt down, and improvised explosive devices were reportedly planted along roads leading to the town. We will be conducting a joint mission there in the coming days with the government and are standby to provide assistance as required. In 2023, more than 4,500 civilians were killed as a result of the conflict in northeast Nigeria. That's according to our report on the protection of civilians in armed conflict. And quick update from the Democratic Republic of the Congo and our efforts to fight mpox outbreak. UNICEF said today we're stepping up their support to the government to protect the lives of children under 15, who account for about 60% of suspected cases of mpox and 80% of cases of deaths this year. From the beginning of the year to the end of August, more than 21,000 suspected mpox cases were recorded in the country, as well as 700 deaths. Over the past week, UNICEF has received the first shipment of mpox vaccines totaling 215,000 doses. More shipments are expected. UNICEF is also supporting the vaccine rollout through related supplies and logistics and the training of health workers in transportation, storage, and the administration of vaccines to patients. The agency has also enhanced community-based surveillance, the training of health workers, and community engagement teams. UNICEF says they need $35 million to reach over 2.2 million people, including 1.3 million children, over the next 6 months. UNICEF has only received about 21% of that needed amount. And today is the day for South-South cooperation. In a message, the Secretary General said today we celebrate the transformative power of unity and solidarity among developing countries. He underscored that South-South cooperation does not reduce the responsibility of wealthier nations to help tackle global inequalities, but added that strong South-South partnership, along with triangular cooperation, is crucial to building a better future for all. There's a panel discussion for those of you who are interested. It's going on right now. The discussion seeks to spotlight efforts made by member states, UN system, and the private sector and civil society on South-South cooperation. You can watch it on the web TV of the United Nations. Our friends in Geneva, the International Telecommunications Union, released today the Global Cybersecurity Index 2024, which says that countries around the world are improving cybersecurity efforts, but stronger actions is needed to meet an evolving cyber threats. Threats highlighted in the report include ransomware attacks targeting government services and other sectors, cyber breaches affecting industry, costly system outrages, breaches of privacy for individual organizations. The report also provides a roadmap of activities to make further improvements to cybersecurity. I want to bring to your attention a new piece of art in the UN Garden. It's called the Kwibuka Flame of Hope, and it's a gift from the Republic of Rwanda. It depicts the Kwibuka flame, which symbolizes the resilience and courage of Rwandans since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, when more than 1 million people were systematically killed. This is also a reminder of the need to speak out against hate speech. The flame was installed yesterday afternoon in the North Garden area. It can be seen from the Visitors Plaza, and you will see it during the GA because the journalist entrance will take you right past it. Take a look at it. It's a moving monument. New resident coordinator, Secretary General has appointed Mama Keita of Guinea as a new resident coordinator, humanitarian coordinator for Niger. She started September 9th, now that she has a government's approval. She brings over 20 years of experience in development economics. We congratulate her and welcome her. Speaking of welcoming, tomorrow I will be joined virtually from Amman by Laila Bakr of the UN Population Fund. She is the Arab States Regional Director who just concluded a visit to Sudan, a forgotten crisis. She will share with you what she witnessed on the ground, the suffering of the Sudanese people, including especially women and girls who struggle to obtain life-saving sexual and reproductive health services and protections from all forms of sexual and gender-based violence. No money. Sorry, Benno. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is about the upcoming announcement by the United States that it will support 2 permanent seats for Africa in the United Nations Security Council. However, they don't want the veto rights to be expanded nor abolished all in all. My question to you is, what does the Secretary General think? Can there be a credible Security Council reform without the reform of the veto right?
I think the announcement is an important one. It's a welcomed one. Obviously, I think all of the details of how this will work will have to be decided by member states, but it goes along the lines, the broad lines of what the Secretary General has said, and has lamented, which is the lack of African representation on the permanent members of the Security Council.
Then you mentioned the Summit of the Future already. German Chancellor Scholz said that there are differences to bridge still. The SG wants the most ambitious reforms possible. Does he think, though, that there might be a chance that there will be no agreement on September 22?
No, we are very... No is the short answer to your question. We believe there will be an agreement, and I think we're very thankful for the efforts of the Federal Republic of Germany and for Namibia for co-leading the negotiations on the pact.
Okay, then let me follow up. I mean, like, the SG says he wants a very ambitious paper. I've seen how ambitious it looks right now, and it does not that much. So would he say better a bad deal than no deal?
No, he would not say that. I think he remains determined, and he hopes that the member states remain determined to find a way forward to bring the agreement across the finish line. Gabriel, then Benny.
Thank you, Steph. Going to the UNRWA school shelter attack by Israel. Israel has already targeted, just in the last couple weeks, a UN convoy World Food Program. This week, as you know, another UN-marked convoy, and now we have 6 UNRWA employees, not to mention over a dozen civilians that are killed. Clearly, deconfliction isn't working. It hasn't worked. So what more can the Secretary General do to stop his staff members from being killed?
Well, I think the question should also be directed at other parties in this conflict. We are working as hard as we can to keep that balance between keeping our staff safe and delivering the humanitarian aid that civilians so desperately need in Gaza. And we will continue to move forward on that. We've raised these issues at the highest levels of the Israeli government, and we will continue to do so.
Israel's coming out and again saying that several of the 6 UNRWA staff members were combatants, were fighters, were part of Hamas. Do you have any evidence of that?
No, we've heard what they said, and I referred it to it in the statement. We have no way of, we're not in a position to confirm it, to deny it. Our focus is on humanitarian help. What is clear to us is that no one in this conflict, and all parties, and I do mean all parties, should never use civilian infrastructure as a place from which to launch attacks, to target attacks. The use of human shields has been condemned, and we will continue in that direction. Benny.
Mr. Pinata, to you. 2 questions.
Mr. What? Mr. Pinata. Yes, sorry.
Yes. 2 questions about that, well, never forgotten conflict.
I understand what you're talking about.
The not Sudan one.
Yeah, no, I understand.
First of all, in your statement, or the SG statement, you name the party that attacked that school. Then you say, urge all parties to refrain from using facilities. Which parties are those?
That would include the Palestinian groups that are operating in Gaza, whether it's Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
The Secretary General never mentioned in that?
The Secretary General has used that word very directly on a number of times,
but not in this case.
I'm using it now, and he's used it in a number of times.
All right. So, second question is, Israel named 9 Hamas operatives' names ranks and so on that were killed in that attack, according to their information. They also say that they asked UNRWA to give them the names of the UNRWA workers who were targeted in that attack, who were
Well,
killed
I hope they
who were
weren't
killed in
targeted.
that
Yes,
attack.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And they say that UNRWA is yet to give them the names. Do you have the names?
I'm sure. Listen, the whether it's the or foreign ministry colleague, the foreign ministry in Israel or COGAT or the IDF.
No, it's
they
your,
have
it's your counterpart.
They have
at,
the phone
IDF.
numbers of at UNRWA, and UNRWA has the phone numbers. I'm sure that I'm sure they're speaking to each other. I don't have any information here.
Well,
We're also not releasing the names publicly of people who've been killed is an issue for the family members. But I'm sure that the Israeli authorities and UNRWA can have a constructive dialogue on this point.
Well, your counterpart at the IDF, they have a spokesman.
Yeah.
Said that they requested names. They didn't say for
I don't know
publications.
who did they
didn't-
request it of.
I don't know
Well,
either.
I mean, so I think
I'm
people
asking
can
you
pick up the
because
phones.
you're a spokesman
I
for the
understand.
Secretary General and
Yeah.
to the UN, which UNRWA is part of.
I understand.
And UNRWA, I'm asking you for a comment on
My-
an
my
allegation
com- my
that was
co-
made.
my comment-
An
my-
allegation. Wait, let me finish my question, please. An allegation that was made by, a spokesman for the IDF who is involved in that.
My comment is that UNRWA has been as cooperative as possible with the Israeli security forces when it comes to accusations that UN humanitarian workers are involved in activities outside of their humanitarian remit. Let me finish. We saw it back in January of this year. We have been as open, as transparent as possible. I would encourage all those involved to pick up the phone and to do it directly, face to face. And as much as I hate to say it, I think solving these problems through spokespeople statements is probably not the best way.
So you're not answering my question.
I'm
My
answering.
question is-
I am answering your
Let me
question to the
ask-
best of my
let
ability.
me ask it a little more focused, maybe. Is there a list of the names of UNRWA who were killed? And if so, was it conveyed to the Israeli authorities?
UNRWA knows who was killed. If whether or not it was conveyed to the Israeli authorities, that's not a question I can answer from here. What I'm saying to you, if there are any issues between the Israeli security forces and UNRWA, they are best dealt directly.
Well, there obviously are.
Well, Deji.
I'll follow Benny. I'm sorry. So continue that incident. Obviously, there are conflicting information from UNRWA who said they are not aware of this request from Israel, but IDF said they have repeatedly requested the names of those people who got killed there. Please follow this up, and if you got any updates, please share with us, not the names, but whether you have already communicated with Israel on this.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So my
Less I
question.
speak, the better.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Sorry. My question is, do you have any knowledge before this attack? How many UNRWA staff was in that school?
Large number. I don't have the exact number of how many. I mean, you could ask our UNRWA colleagues. I don't have that data with me.
So according to the statement, it particularly said that that IDF stated that they had targeted the command and control center in this compound, and this incident must be independently and thoroughly investigated to ensure accountability. If this is an UNRWA-run school, why UN is not in the position to tell whether this place has been used by Hamas as a command and central control center?
I think one.
I mean, you can just say no. It's not running as a by Hamas.
It is UNRWA. This is an UNRWA shelter, run by UNRWA. If anyone is misusing,
They would know.
We would know, but if it was people were visibly misusing it, we would know. And I would refer you to the statement that we do not want any parties to this conflict to use UN-run facilities, civilian infrastructure, to run military operations.
But I still don't understand why you cannot really make comments whether this is
Our focus,
used.
I mean,
Oh, I know what the focus of the UN is, but
Okay,
like
good.
this is their UNRWA school.
I understand it's an UNRWA school.
Yeah, so why don't
It is run as it is a shelter. It is a humanitarian center. It is there to protect the lives of people.
So there is no visual. Let me put it this way: there's no visual evidence that this school has been used as a command and
we
control
have
center.
no evidence.
Okay. Okay. So you said the Secretary General said this incident must be independently and thoroughly investigated. By whom?
I think.
If you don't
I
clarify
understand,
yourself,
but
I think
we
they
need.
will.
I think we need to. First of all, one can imagine that it is difficult to investigate anything while this conflict is going on. As I've said,
Exactly.
once this conflict is over, there will need to be accountability. Okay, Vladimir.
Thank you, Stefan. In addition to the Russian exploits you mentioned, today Russians launched a missile attack in the Black Sea on a civilian ship carrying grain from Ukraine to Egypt, just after the ship left Ukrainian territorial waters. Do you have any comments on these actions of Putin's Russia?
What I can tell you is that the Secretary General condemns all attacks wherever they occur against civilians, against civilian infrastructure, and the latest strikes. Sorry, this is yet another example of the risk to the global economy, to global trade that we've seen in that region. It's a stark reminder that vessels continue to face threats in the Black Sea. Ensuring the safety and sustainability of agricultural exports passing through the Black Sea remains a critical for supporting global food security and keeping global prices under control. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. On Yemen and the Houthi detentions of UN staff and so many others, has the Secretary General reached out to the Houthis' leaders to actually try and get
Yeah, I mean,
those people
his
released?
representative, Mr. Grunberg, has on a number of times, as well as the resident coordinator, Julian Harness.
But no,
The Secretary
higher
General has
level
has
official.
not had any direct contact. Okay.
Sorry, Stefan.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Question on Venezuela. Still, the U.S. government has announced new sanctions against 16 allies of President Maduro. How does that help the process of dialogue, and what is your position on these sanctions?
I don't think it helps. Our concern about respect for human rights and the way the lack of transparency on the election results remains unchanged. Gabriel and then Sunil.
Thanks, Steph. Going back to the UNRWA shelter, we're told that there were about 12,000 people sheltering in that facility. Does that sound right
That
to you?
sounds just about right. Yeah.
Okay. And a simple question, but I'll ask it anyway. Does the killing of one fighter justify the killing of any civilians in any military action?
I understand the simplicity of the question. The point is that everything must be done to protect civilian lives and protect civilian infrastructure. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steph. I have a question about Iran and Iraq. As you know, the president of Iran visited Kurdistan region of Iraq and also Baghdad. And the picture looks like really, I mean, both sides sending positive messages The reason I'm asking this question is like the region has been very intense, especially in the Middle East, and both sides, the actors of the region, some of them at least, giving us some positive messages. And I wonder how Secretary General views such a picture, like positive pictures, and how he urges the other actors in the region for such a...
Look, we hope to see in that part of the world an increase in dialogue, an increase in stability, as opposed to the other way around. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Stefan. Yes, so UNRWA already lost 220 staff. Does that fall within the policy of Israel to target UNRWA? Because it's accusing it of being a terrorist organization. So does not UNRWA learn the lesson and see that its staff are targeted by this Israeli onslaught?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to the motivation. I can only speak to right now the results and the condemnation that we've expressed.
And yesterday, Stefan, 5 Palestinians were killed in the refugee camp near the city of Tubas in the West Bank. I haven't heard any word coming from any UN official about those who were targeted by Air Force.
I have not seen any information on that. I will get back to you if I do. Benny.
Just to follow up on Gabriel's question. The other day in a statement, the Secretary General mentioned proportionality as part of the international law regarding wars. What is proportionality? Can you give us a little bit of explanation?
I think, Benny, I'll speak for myself. I'm not a native English speaker, but I think I know what the word proportion means. And
what does it mean as far as the laws of war?
I will leave it to those who will stand in judgment on those who have the parties who've conducted this war.
What does it mean as far as the laws of war, which is the context that word was used?
The proportionality of force vis-a-vis what your aims are and the collateral costs. Thank you.